Hey guys, Justin here with JHart Modelworks, coming to you with another update on the Ford GT40 from Meng, the buddy build that I'm doing with Chris from City Scale Models. So there's not been a lot of progress on the GT40, and yet there has been a lot of progress on the GT40. I know that doesn't make sense, so we're going to go ahead and get this camera flipped around and I will explain. Alright guys, let's start with the body since that's where we left off last. Everything has been clear coated in 2K clear. Everything has been sanded back and polished out. Looks incredible. There was quite a bit of dust in here. There's a section back here. There are a couple of sections up here on the roof. A little bit of issue right up in here and right through here. All of it was easily taken care of with a lot of sanding. I sanded out the small little goober that was here 5 times. I don't want to push it any further and possibly tear through the clear and just damage the paint job, so I have finally convinced myself to stop and leave it alone. But all in all, that looks awesome. This color in the sunlight is incredible, as I'm going to show right through here. This is just absolutely crazy. I wish I had a small sun that I could put in my display case for this. All right, all of this here is just nice and dry fit, of course, since it's not completed. So this piece isn't finished yet. Depending on the engine mods that I do, if they interfere with this, I'm going to cut this out of the rest of this, just this flat cover panel. I honestly wouldn't mind rather seeing the engine instead of this cover panel anyhow, so I may just do it anyway. We shall see. I mentioned that this was probably going to be fragile, and of course it was fragile, and I bumped it. Just one time I bumped it and I split that. Now the upside to this is that we have a piece of photo etch mesh that's going to cover this, and I'm pretty sure that's going to glue here, and we'll hold these together so we won't actually see it. But when you're building it, if you don't want to break this, be very careful with it. Now, normally I don't sand and polish this early. Normally it's like one of the last things I do before final assembly, but the interior tub and the engine bay section needs to get set in here, and it needs to get locked down. So I don't want to be slinging polish on here and getting polish in here where I can't get it cleaned up. So I went ahead and did my sanding and polishing. I do still have some polish on here. I'm going to need to clean up the body a bit, get all that polish out. We do have all of the front suspension components painted with the exception of the shocks, which the shocks have the ends done and the centers done. I've been waiting on some tape. I've got some Azu 0.4 millimeter tape that I want to run around between the springs so I can do the springs. I don't know if I'm going to do them in a gloss black or a yellow. I'm thinking yellow. I don't want to do red because the end caps are already red, so I'm probably going to do yellow on these. But Amazon hasn't delivered it. It was supposed to have come on August 28th. They have been kind of jacking around and not shipped it yet, and so I reordered another roll of it that shipped the very next day, and I had to go cancel the first order. It's been an absolute pain in the butt, but this is holding us up right now. If I had gotten the tape when I should have gotten it, the entire front suspension would be done by now. So we've got our lower control arms that just kind of get tucked up in here. We have our wheel hubs. which these came out fantastic. The brakes came out beautiful. I'm very happy with the brakes. And we have, you know, our steering linkage. We also have our front radiator. I'm just gonna sit just like that. Now I need to see what this kit's gonna look like when it's assembled, because I don't see any kind of an internal radiator. So I may do some additional work. I may 3D print up a radiator to go in here with some electric fans, maybe a spare tire. We shall see. Kind of get that more full look, because I don't plan on gluing this down. I think you're supposed to glue this down according to the kit assembly, which means it would have probably been a lot easier had I done that. Had I just glued it in place. I could have gotten these stripes to mask off just a little bit better. They're just slightly off. It's just so slightly off. But depending on what all is in the kit, I haven't done a whole lot of look. You know, I haven't really checked it out, but I'm going to do some more dry fitting on some more parts after I get the interior taken care of. I may add some additional stuff in here just to fill this up a little bit. Now it's important that we get the front suspension done, because we need to get this interior tub needs to get glued into place. And it's going to have to be done with some Tamiya Extra Thin. So this needs to get glued in place, and it needs to glue down tightly so that things fit properly. So part of the problem we have is that this needs to fit like that. So there's a lot of spring here. That's a good deal of give. The other side gives quite a bit as well, but not nearly as much. But these need to get pulled down way tight, because if it sticks up, it's going to cause interference when you get that back wall in place. That back wall will interfere with the roof. So everything has to get in, everything has to be tightened down. So my plan is to use clamps. I've never used clamps in modeling before, but we're going to mask all this off so that we don't mar it up when we do it for real. Just throw our glue down in there and just give it ever so slight of a tighten, just enough so that it stays tightened down while it's being glued. So I have several of these. I picked them up on Amazon. We're going to see how well these work. So yeah, the main goal at this point is to get the front suspension finished so I can get the interior tub glued into place, and then I can start working on getting this back wall in and making sure that the back wall fits properly. And once I have the back wall in place, I can work on the interior and, most importantly, this engine bay, because I can't be certain how the engine is going to fit and what I can and can't do mod wise until I can get this section done. Once I figure out my engine, then I can figure out if I'm going to need to cut this out. And like I said, I may just cut it out anyhow. We shall see. So that's the next main focus, is just getting that front suspension done and getting the interior tub glued down. Speaking of the interior, we have some very cool things to show you interior-wise. We have our pedal assembly, which that came out beautiful, in my opinion. We also have our fire extinguisher with that little decal that Chris sent me. That decal really helps sell the fire extinguisher. And we have the seats, which the seats are upside down for a reason. These seats are really, really cool, again, in my opinion. Every single one of the grommets in the seats has been replicated with a .034 washer from RB Motion. The first seat took me 2 days. The second one took me 3. You would think it would take less time to do it after you did it the first time, but no, it took a lot of work for me to get through these seats. I would do a little bit, and then I would have to stop and just work on something else, or just get up and leave entirely, because this is a tedious process. You put down a tiny bit of Mod Podge. I was using a mechanical pencil to place the Mod Podge. Then use a toothpick to pick up and place a washer in place. And once you get them all in place, I hosed it down with some semi-gloss clear from Mr. Hobby with 2 like really, really wet coats of clear so that it would soak down and get around all the washers and lock them into place when it dries. And then after that dried up, I sprayed it all down with a couple of really light mist coats of GX113 flat clear to tone it down, get it back into kind of a flat look, and tone down the metal brassy look. It looked a little blingy before the flat coat. So the next step for these seats is going to be some old school 4-point racing harnesses. I probably could do the 5s, but I want to stick with kind of a classic 4-point look. So we shall see. I don't know if I've got the stuff for it. I may end up having to 3D model the latch. We shall see what happens there. But yeah, the seats are looking good. And the last thing I want to show you guys are these wheels, which I think came out really nice. I do still need to sand these. I forgot to do that before I put them on the wheels, so I will have to manually sand the tires the old school way with just a sandy stick and some manual labor. But those came out fantastic. I kind of wish the centers were a little darker. The centers are Alclad magnesium. The outer ring is Alclad duraluminum, which normally gives me a brighter look than this. And then the centers are candy green over, I forget what I used for a silver base. But we did go in with some Vallejo silver and hit the indents in the wheel locks there. Those knockoffs look incredible. The Goodyear is spray painted. That's Mr. Hobby 1500 white. I forget which one of these I used. I want to say I used the 16-inch, but it doesn't lay centered. Like, I had to use the 16-inch to get the right angle, because these are supposedly 15-inch wheels. But the 15-inch doesn't lay right. It curves too sharp. I had to use the 16-inch, but I had to position it, so I couldn't center it. I had to drop it down a bit to get it into place. I sprayed each one of these wheels probably 3 or 4 times trying to get the alignment for the lettering right. It was a lot of work, but I think that looks a lot better, in my opinion, than the decals would. I have a hard time with the decals. Tire decals never look right for me. I can always see the carrier film, even if, I use all the solvents and the hair dryer and I try to get it as flat as I can always see that carrier film, and then they look really glossy, and then I have to flat coat them, and then the rubber breaks the flat coat. They always seem to be a problem. I never can get them to look right. Then again, I'm not a fan of decals anyhow. Decals are kind of my arch nemesis, but yeah, I think those came out good. So that's where we're at, guys. Like I said, our main focus is going to be on getting the front suspension and getting the interior tub in place if I can get enough time this week. I am going to SuperCon in Arlington, September 9th. That's this Saturday. So depending on how much time I get after that, this is also the wife's birthday weekend. We may have a second birthday weekend for her next weekend as well, because a lot of time has been eaten out of her weekend. So we shall see. We're going to do what we can to get some progress on this, but so far I think we're in a pretty good place for where we're at. Check out Chris's channel, CD Scale Models. He's doing a buddy build on this as well. I know he recently released a video update on his build. He's making some progress. He's got a beautiful color of just an absolutely gorgeous blue that he's putting on his. So go ahead and check him out. If you are not subscribed to Chris, give him a subscribe and show him some love. He is a great builder, a great friend of the channel, as are all of you. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I always appreciate your time and watching the videos, and I will catch you on the next one.